Hello everyone, this is my ILA 2018 first day recap, summary and impressions video, and also a little announcement for day 2 of course. As you can probably hear, I'm back from a hotel room floor with a laptop microphone, and I'm just a little bit tired because yesterday was pretty exhausting but also pretty awesome. But also got kind of dangerous, but it was also worth it. So I'll go through it kind of chronologically. So once there, it all started with an ESA or European Space Agency news conference, as they were about to release the second data release from the Gaia mission, a sort of large survey space telescope that unlike TESS, though, goes a rather long range, measures stars throughout our entire galaxy and a few other galaxies too. And also, it doesn't take a continuous short time, but rather takes snapshots and then looks back after a few months again, and then looks back after another few months again, so that we can see actual star movement and see how the entire galaxy swirls and orbits and the orbital mechanics within the galaxy and what that tells us about the history of the galaxy, which is incredibly interesting. And I got a question answered by the ESA chief. After that, the airshow itself got delayed a bit, at first due to strong winds, and I took that time to take a few images of rocket engine models, and then I went out onto the static display, which is basically on the airfield itself, to get a closer look at the Antonov AN-225, the at the time still largest plane to ever have properly flown. It might be overtaken by Stratolaunch at some point, but that is actually pretty hard to imagine once you've seen the thing. That thing is a flying building, and a large one. Now, I did get some video from inside, but I'm a bit limited right now since I don't have that much time before I have to leave to the second day of ILA. Then, after leaving the AN-225, the weather slowly got worse, and one by one, people started to decide it was time to go off the airfield and back into the expo halls. And I still wanted to film some aircraft, but eventually I also decided to go back. And at some point, the weather got really bad, really suddenly. Heavy rain and hail coupled with extremely strong wind, and I mean that was no longer fun. That was actually pretty dangerous. Now I rushed inside, sprinted to the next hall, and I can only hope that no one got seriously injured. I don't think anyone got seriously injured. I don't know for absolutely sure, but obviously it's a large air show. There's a lot of police and paramedic and firefighter presence, and you talk to each other, and it didn't seem like anyone got really seriously injured, but there were probably some light injuries. Like, I know that there were people who were a bit further away from the next hall than me who took a little bit longer to run to cover, and even I got struck pretty badly by hail. Didn't really get injured, it hurt a bit, but then that was also a matter of luck, and then there were quite a few people, so there were probably some minor injuries, but luckily nothing major. I then spent a little longer in the main halls. I found a few interesting things, a few interesting companies, but nothing really major that I would immediately find the footage for. For now, I have all my footage on my hard drive, and since there was still a rocket launch yesterday, it got a bit later and it's all a bit rushed now. Tomorrow evening I'll have more time, so I'll search through the footage. But there were some pretty cool things there, including a tilt rotor type drone, which is something I've thought should be coming for a long time, and now there finally is one. So it's basically a typical quad drone, but with servo motors that allow you to tilt the propellers forwards, and it's kind of a multi-body airplane design. So it's a small drone that can fly long ranges very efficiently at relatively high speed while also being a typical quad VTOL drone. After some time, we dared to leave the hall again, and the airshow continued for now since the weather had cleared up a little bit, and I'm sorry, I'm probably going to pronounce that even worse than my English. The Patrulla Aguila, the Spanish Air Force formation and aerobatics flying team, did a pretty impressive display, which was again temporarily paused due to another strike of bad weather, another bit of heavy rain. We found a dry place under the cargo door of an Airbus A400M, and after a few minutes of extreme rain, the weather cleared up, this time for good, and actually revealed a really clear blue sky. We saw the rest of their aerobatics display, which was relatively long and incredibly skillful. We got some military helicopter presentations with the CH-53 King Stallion, which is a new version of the CH-53, but heavily modernized to the point where it's basically a different helicopter that just looks the same. It has a really precise fly-by-wire system, stabilization, and it did some pretty impressive maneuvers, especially for this wind and this size of a helicopter. I then noticed that filming precisely in this kind of wind is actually a little bit tricky, and I hope that the weather will clear up a bit more today. And I also got a bit of improved filming technology today, so I hope it will get better. But ILA goes over 5 days this year actually, so it's 1 day more than the last few years. So there's still plenty of time to get better and get good footage. I then proceeded to go look up close at some more aircraft. I looked into a C-17, and kind of a little highlight, I saw there's actually a V-22 Osprey on display this year. And I've been wishing to actually just see an Osprey for a very long time. This is a really unique aircraft. If you don't know it, it's the helicopter that can turn into an airplane, or the airplane that can turn into a helicopter. Even the flight crew can't decide on which one it is. It's a tilt-rotor VTOL that can fly long ranges relatively efficiently while also having the maneuverability of a helicopter. It's the only tilt-rotor VTOL of this size with some actual cargo capacity. And I actually got really close up, and then they let me go inside, and they even let me sit in front in the cockpit and actually even play with the controls, because I mean there are still aircraft controls. You're still not supposed to break them. If you slam them with a hammer or something, they'd still break, but the aircraft is completely fly-by-wire, so as long as it's turned off, you can basically move the controls however you like, and the aircraft isn't going to do anything or fail in any way like some other aircraft would. So I didn't have to worry that I'd suddenly tilt the rotors and beat someone over the head with them. The V-22 did have a really cool flight crew, and they are going to be here all week, so I hope to get back to them and get some more footage. After that, we got a Eurofighter display, which is always cool. It never gets old, and every day at ILA does need to have one Eurofighter display. But it was a little bit tricky to film since it was quite windy, actually to the point where it was hard to keep the camera steady, because the wind would literally blow against the camera objective and the camera lens, and make it and basically turn the camera against my hand. And with the wind changing, I'd have to constantly fight to just keep the camera steady. Of course, it's something you wouldn't necessarily notice normally, but with extreme zoom, and I did want to film the Eurofighter like full frame, it does get pretty notable. In the late evening, after ILA itself had actually officially closed down, there was another event at ESA's Space Pavilion. As you might know, the Sentinel-3B Earth observation and research satellite launched yesterday on a rocket, And since ESA was present at the ILA with quite a few people who had worked on that satellite more or less directly, they held a big event in the Space Pavilion where there were a few speeches, a few presentations on the Copernicus program and the Sentinel satellites and the rocket that would launch them. Then we watched the rocket launch live stream on the large screen, and it was a pretty tense moment, but the launch went well, and that's why it got relatively late yesterday and why I had relatively little time to go through footage and make videos in the meantime, which is going to be different today. Now, today the day will start with an Ariane 6 presentation. We'll see what kind of progress they have made since 2 years ago. Apart from that, the weather will hopefully be a bit better today. I'll be back this evening with more footage and time, so see you then, and as always, thanks for watching.